my name is Emily, and I'm gonna do a video in a different fashion. This is really my first attempt at doing it where I'm not looking into the mirror. As you know, I've been doing videos for a little while. I don't really have an audience. I'm seeing people are actually watching my videos, but I wouldn't say that I have that big a fan base. I do have some subscribers, and that makes me feel good. I'm in my transitional phase as a male to female transgender girl, and I'm doing a lot of soul searching at this time in my life. As you may know from other videos I've done, I have a son who's autistic, and I have a very good relationship with my son. He's very intelligent, and we have wonderful times together. He's going to a special school because of his learning disabilities, and he's making good progress, so we're very happy about that, my wife and I. So, what does it mean to have a family and to transition? That's a very difficult area for most people who identify as transgender. For many, their whole core identity is different from where they are or how they're perceived, and many people who struggle with gender dysphoria, who are transgender, try to do many things to kind of make those feelings go away, and a lot of transgender individuals marry, raise a family, and that's something that is somewhat a way to kind of push off the feelings that most people who identify differently struggle with. I know for me, I struggled all my life basically, and I was afraid to come out. I didn't tell anybody. I was very shy, awkward. I didn't have many relationships with girls or guys. I really never dated. I was very, I don't know if you want to say geeky, but I was very studious in high school and college. I was also sports minded. I was on the cross country team in high school. So I did all the boyish, manly things that typically would be interpreted as something that I should be doing. And for me that was fine. I also like baseball, but it was kind of a difficult time for me growing up because I kind of pretended who I really was. I always remember being envious of girls growing up and hoping one day to be like that. I wanted to wear pretty clothes and be feminine and just look more girlish, as pretty girls have a very sweet sense about them, and they're very attractive, and most girls are so sweet, and they're just fun to be with. And that's how I wanted to be. I wanted to be popular. I wanted to be pretty. I wanted to live life as a girl, and that's how I always want to be in my life. But it didn't work out that way. it's sad in a way when you think about all the time that you hid and pretended and never opened up or talked about it. But opening up or revealing your transgender situation is a very difficult thing to do for most of us. And it's not one of the most pleasant topics, especially when you're dealing with family and friends. They really don't understand it because the odds of someone being transgender is very minimal. It's a very rare instance. However, there are a lot more people that have acknowledged their being transgender, and they are doing, they're being more proactive with it. And a lot more children, too, are dealing with those transgender issues at much younger ages. Whereas when I was a kid, it wasn't really something I could do, and it wasn't appropriate. You just kept it to yourself, basically, which was what I did. And I pretended all my life, really. And the only good thing about me marrying and having a family and living as a male was that I'm blessed with a wonderful son. And if I never married and I transitioned early in my life, I would never have that gift. So for me, having a son is one of the most precious things that I can ever have. And I am most appreciative for that. So I do feel guilty now that I have started transitioning, because I do have a family. I'm married, I have a son, I have a wife, and it's not an easy thing for them. My son is more understanding, he's very empathetic, and I think it also has to do with his autism. My wife struggles with it, obviously, and it's not something she feels comfortable about. We kind of live separately. We don't have any intimacy. Actually, I've been on hormones now for 2 years, so I don't really have a sex drive. Not that I really had one to begin with, but I am looking at my transition in a way of preserving my mental health, my state of being, my wishing to have a happier life. For me, I really have no choice but to transition, because I'm miserable being male. I don't identify as a male. I never really did. And it's just feeling uncomfortable in my body. I always felt more at ease being feminine, walking in a feminine way, trying to adopt the mannerisms of girls or women, and just live life in a more female way. That's how I've always felt inside. The hardest part, though, is that you have to deny those feelings, and you have to pretend and mask how you truly feel inside. And the sad part of it is you never really get to share with people the true person that you are. And people kind of don't realize, but it is a very difficult thing to live your life in denial and to pretend to be someone that you're not. A lot of people are very happy and comfortable the way they're born, and they don't feel a need to change anything. and they're lucky. Um, I'm not going to say transgender people are lucky because they experience life in different ways, but I would say that being transgender kind of is a unique blessing, if you want to say, because you really have a way of exploring your life in different ways. Whereas when you're born and you grow into the expected role, in my case a male, you know, I live that life. I fully understand the mindset of a guy and living that way. I'm not saying that I felt comfortable. I'm not saying that I was thrilled with that life. I wouldn't trade it, being a father and a husband. I mean, I think that's a wonderful gift. But I also appreciate my more feminine side. And I always knew deep down in my heart that I would have to eventually face those feelings that I have, that I locked up inside of my heart. And sure, it's difficult to come out. It's a process, and you really have to approach it in a way where you're respectful of others, especially your family. There are many transgender girls that don't find acceptance usually with their family. It's a very difficult thing to grasp for many people, and it's not really socially accepted. However, with that said, I think people are becoming more open-minded to it. They're becoming more understanding and aware that transgender is a medical issue, and people have to be treated for it. And the technical terms are gender dysphoria and gender identity disorder. Those are the medical terms. A lot of people kind of confuse gender identity disorder with sexual preference. And the difference is that sexual preference has to do with person sex that you're attracted to in a relationship, intimate relationship, whereas gender identity disorder has to do with how you perceive yourself as a gender, male or female. You may have been born male, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you identify as a male. It's very possible that you could identify as a woman, and you feel it's very important that you take steps in the transitional process, because for most, depression is a big part of being transgender, and gender dysphoria never really goes away. And the biggest way to address that is to embark on a transitional journey. And I think that for the most part, people who do go through with the journey and transition are much more happier. I'm not saying that everybody is, but for the most part, I would say there's a good expectation that when you do fully or partially transition, that you feel more content with yourself and you're able to live your life the way you've always felt inside. And I think that's important for all of us. think also that being conflicted, suffering from depression, dealing with the enormous burden of living a lie and holding it in your heart and soul as a burden and a secret, and not opening up, can be very detrimental to your mental well-being. Sadly, there are transgender individuals who have committed suicide. And, I'm not going to try to be a downer on this video, but it's a sobering fact that about 42%, 41, or a range of 40 to 50% of people who identify as transgender have at some point in their life attempted or actually committed suicide. So those are very sobering statistics, and it just makes you realize that gender dysphoria is a very real situation and problem for people who are struggling with that. It's not something to be taken lightly or dismissed, and especially by family. If you don't have support with your family, who are you going to turn to? Many also who struggle with it don't have the financial resources to seek the help they need. They have to kind of deal with it on their own terms. There are transgender people who don't go to doctors. They self-medicate. And that's a very risky thing to do. But they're so desperate that they want to be as comfortable with their body by taking the hormones they need, that they take those risks. And, you know, that's a sad reality. And some are so desperate that they'll do anything to change the pain and hurt that they feel inside. And I think it's a sad state when people judge us in ways where they are hateful and they are abusive and they make us feel bad about how we feel. And, you know, they should take a step back and realize that we're people too, and we know who we are, and we should not feel guilty or shameful about that. There's no reason for it. We need to be happy, and we need to find ways to address those feelings that we have. I think for me, my dilemma with my transgender situation was not being able to comprehend and accept it. I always lived in denial. I always said that, or I always felt that if I repressed it, the feelings would go away. If I got married, when I went to college and when I got married, I felt, you know, those would help me to put that feeling that I kind of struggled with to the side, and I just kind of led myself on a path where I thought that I could overcome those feelings. I just thought, you know, just keep doing what you're doing and, you know, take on that male role and find comfort, or try to, even if you're pretending. And I was perceived as a male. I never had problems. Nobody ever pegged me or thought that I was peculiar or thought I was any different. You know, they all accepted me as a guy, and I fit in, and I never had problems that way. I was good at pretending, and nobody would ever know. And it's funny, when I did come out, people were shocked. I wasn't shocked because I knew my history, I knew my struggle, but a lot of people were dumbfounded. They couldn't accept it. They were in denial like I was. And I lost some friends in the process. Um, I lost my job in the process. I'm not working now, and I feel it's very intimidating um, when you're struggling and you're trying to provide for your family, and you know that you're in a bad economy and an unfriendly job market to people who are minority. Um, Certainly transgender individuals are in the minority, and they're not well understood. People still don't accept that as a lifestyle. They look at it as being ill, sick, crazy, and those are furthest from the truth. Um, Gender dysphoria is a real issue. Um, there are medical professionals that will tell you that it probably is something that you're born with. And I truly believe that. You know, you don't just make a decision that one day you're going to say, oh, I think I'm going to live my life as a girl now. That doesn't happen. It's not like that. This is a lifelong struggle. And you can deny it all you want, but those feelings never go away. I know, because I lived all throughout my life with those feelings and tried to push it aside and ignore it, repress it, suppress it, deny it. But as a 50-year-old, I just realized, hey, you know, I'm getting old. I better do something about my feelings before it's too late. And that's when I started going back to a therapist. I started, you know, the process of doing electrolysis and taking hormones. I went to a doctor. I actually went to Callan Lord, where I only had to wait 3 months to go on hormones. And currently I live as a female. I go out in public presenting as a female. Doing a legal name change. I'm going to have my gender marker changed on my driver's license and apply for a new passport with my new gender marker. The only thing that I feel is not really attainable at this time in my life is the surgery. I feel I qualify for surgery. I have 2 years on hormones, 2 years in therapy. I have a doctor that will write a letter for me. My therapist certainly will write a letter. I have the 2-year requirement that you have to live and dress as a woman, which I have. I've worked as a woman, even though I lost my job. So I feel that I definitely have the requirements, and I do meet the requirements, I guess, outlined by Harry Benjamin, who was a pioneer, and he took a special interest in transgender health issues. I think that once you feel comfortable and you kind of accept who you are and you are doing the steps that you need to successfully transition, you'll start to feel a lot better. You'll start to feel that your life is taking on a new direction and that you're finally on the right path. You know, you may be kind of shaking things up a bit. Certainly when you have a family, that happens. Your spouse may not quite grasp it, and your children, or your siblings and family. But you have to live your life ultimately. Nobody can tell you how to live. You have to decide that. And if you're unhappy, and you realized it from a childhood where you were depressed and felt uncomfortable, you have to take these steps to make you happy. There's no point in living life to be miserable. What's the sense of that? You know, that's not how you want to live. You want to find true happiness. You know, and you know, there's no such thing as perfection in the transitional process. You know, you may be afraid that you're not going to pass, that you're going to be found out, but those are risks you're going to have to take if you're truly committed to following your heart. You know, the realities of life is that we all have struggle, you know, and we can't judge others unless we step into their shoes. And, you know, nobody can tell us how to live or make us feel guilty for making choices. For me, being trans is not a choice. It's really something that I've lived with. And transitioning is not a choice. It's something that I need to do. And a lot of girls, or trans girls, trans guys, feel, you know, it's just part of the process where you take baby steps with a goal in mind of where you want to be. Being transgender is a spectrum where you have different level or different sides of the spectrum. And there are people that are very severe on the spectrum where they feel it's necessary to do every aspect of transitioning, including sex reassignment or gender reassignment surgery. And there are others on the spectrum that are just simply dressing in clothes of the opposite sex. And that is all they need to do. So you have this wide range of the spectrum, similar to autism, and people are struggling with those aspects. There are a lot of people that cross-dress and they're in the closet. I was for all my life. And I'm not in the closet anymore, which is a huge relief. But I'm not just a